What is going on, guys? Welcome to Mikey Balls Fishing. So, you guys showed a lot of interest, and I think everybody's showing a lot of interest in the walleye cheating scandal. You know, these guys cheated in this tournament. We talked about it in a video a couple weeks ago, about a week and a half ago or so. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, it literally is the epitome of people going over the edge for ego, for money, for whatever reason that drove them over the edge. But it's nasty, and what the problem really is it pollutes the rest of our sport. There's no way to kind of get away from it, in the sense that there's always going to be questions, and now even more questions about the validity of tournament weights, the honesty of anglers, you know, because we're not honest anyways. We'll kind of tell half truths and things like that when it comes to fishing patterns, so we don't have a good sort of starting point from the beginning. But one thing I really wanted to talk to you about, there's a lot of curiosity about how guys actually cheat. And I know a little bit about it because I've seen it happen, and I've also heard stories about various things. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to talk about different ways that cheating does occur in tournaments, so that you can be a little more like on point with, you know, if you see something suspicious, talk about it, ask about it, you know, bring it up, something along those lines. So obviously, in this case, it was sticking weights inside the fish. So these fish were actually dead, but basically they were inserting weights and sort of wrapping the weights. That's an old school trick. They've been doing it with split shot, with various sized lead weights. The one thing that you don't always hear about, though, is I heard about people back in the early 2000s, there was actually the usage of ice to do this. And the trick with the ice is it would add some weight, however, it would also melt and dissipate, so it was untrackable. So they'd actually stuff the ice blocks inside the fish, sometimes even killing the fish because they put so much in, and it would shock the inside of their body as well. But it would also add weight to the fish, and by the time the tournament was actually over, you really couldn't even tell because it would have been dissipated or melted away, which would seem just totally normal, right? The other one that is really standard is the old fishing cages, or fish sort of tied to a stringer. So I know this has happened at Gunnersville before, but guys will say, for instance, have a boathouse that they know the people that own it or something like that, and they'll go out and they'll catch their fish before the tournament, put them on like a metal sort of stringer, like your old school stringers you used to use, you know, for like bringing fish home to eat. They'll keep them on that, or they'll keep them in some kind of tub or cage. I've actually found a tub kind of like this out on Okeechobee, a cage like this, whether it was a bait cage or whether it was a bass cage for actually keeping tournament fish, I don't know. But basically they'll keep those fish in a location, submerged, alive, and they'll go and pick them up. Now, I know the guys on Gunnersville, they were actually followed because it was a little bit of suspicious behavior, and the local wildlife agency followed them and actually watched them pull the fish out of the boathouse. So that's one example. One way a lot of times you can tell when guys are grabbing fish, it doesn't, you know, always work, because there's always going to be some question, you know, is somebody really cheating? You know, you always want to err on the side of being sort of more cautious. Like, I don't think we should assume everyone's guilty. That's not a good way to approach things. But oftentimes these fish will be beat up, or maybe they'll have a different, especially if they're kept in kind of a cage or a box. They're usually fish match sort of the water color. So if the water's like real dark, you know, they'll usually be dark. Sometimes if they're in a box, they're in like a white box or a lighter, like almost like when you keep them in your live well, they'll show a lighter shade. Oftentimes they'll be really beat up and lethargic too. If it's a winter fishing tournament and this guy's got fish that look like they were caught in 90-degree summer in the middle of, or 90-degree water in the middle of summer, yeah, that's sometimes very questionable. Another example is when you have actually a slot lake, a lake where you have to catch fish within a certain size range. They'll catch a fish over the slot. So say the slot is up to 19 inches and less. They'll catch a fish that's 20 inches, and they'll trim down the tail of the fish, cutting it down, thus it fits in the slot limit, thus it's a keepable fish for the tournament. There's also stuff that's a little less maybe like physical, like manipulation of the fish, whether it's location or the bodies of the fish, that guys will do. One example, and it seems, I don't know, like it's just kind of scummy. I guess they're all kind of scummy, but this one's like blatantly scummy. So you see somebody on the lake, say it's like a big fish tournament, and they offer to purchase a fish from you that you've caught, or that they see, say you're fishing next to somebody, you catch a big one, and they're in a tournament, and they're like, yeah, I'll give you $20 to grab that fish from you. And it's like, why? You didn't even catch it. But that's another way it works. And then you kind of start getting into maybe some of the higher echelon like tournaments. And in a lot of like situations like that, the cheating doesn't actually occur in regards to directly manipulating the fish or things along those lines. A lot of times the cheating occurs by getting extra information, being sneaky and sort of walking around the rules or manipulating the rules so that you can get more information closer up to the time of the deadline, however that may be. Maybe it's by posting things on little sneaky websites or something that nobody else sees, but the angler can see unless it's publicly posted, you know? So they have access to the information. Nobody else really knows it's there, but since it's a public website, it's not really considered off limits to the angler. Other things like that can be, using guides to sort of get on fish before tournaments. Whether that sometimes these things can actually be just fine in regards to the rules, or sometimes they can be a violation of the rules depending on how they're done. And so that gets a little more sort of, it's all ethics, but it gets a little more how you approach the rules, how stringent you want to be with following the rules, and how ethical you're going to be about following the rules. But there's a wide range of ways that these guys can cheat. I don't think it's as prevalent as one would think, or as it seems like with all the viral video, but it does happen. When you put ego on the line, money on the line, things along those lines, people, they cut corners and they take the short route. Like, that's just the reality, especially when it comes to fishing, which is such a variable sport because we're dealing with nature and interacting with nature and trying to trick nature, So definitely watch out for some of those things. There's some signs you can see of those various ways to cheat in tournaments, and there's definitely other creative ways that guys are cheating in tournaments. So you need to, if you participate in that stuff, you need to be the one keeping an eye out for it. If you guys got any to add, go ahead and drop them down in the comments box. I'm actually very interested in this topic and all the ways people can cheat and sort of manipulate the rules to get around stuff. So drop it down in the comments box. I'd love to hear some of your perspectives. But hit that like and subscribe button. Let's hope you're not cheating in your next fishing tournament, but I do hope you're going to be catching some fish. We will see you around, hopefully back out on the water, or maybe talking a little bit more from the garage or from the boat right here. Tight lines, guys.